Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Yeah, good.
Sure. Okay, we are? Great, great. Good evening. Welcome to the Keene Board of Education Finance Committee meeting for, it's already September, Tuesday, September 2nd, and our first meeting as a committee for the new school year, 25-26. We'll start public input at 6:01. There was none on the drive. No members of the public are here, but we'll accommodate if we have a member show up within the next 30 minutes or so. Before we start on our agenda, just want to welcome our AREA rep from Stoddard, who will be with us this year. Welcome, Cynthia. This is Cynthia Lake from Stoddard Board of Education. We're happy to have you here. You're welcome. Yeah, and you can slide that mic over for when you need it. Wonderful. Great. With that said, we have our minutes from our June meeting. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections, comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, and we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Carries 5-0. All right. And just for those who are watching at home, we have our auditor joining us at 6:30 this evening. So we're going to work through as many of our agenda items that we have for tonight's meeting before we hit the 6:30 p.m. Arrival of our CPA, our auditor, at which point we'll do the audit, and then whatever agenda items we've not yet completed, we'll then do those after the audit. Okay. First item is our fund balance. This is an annual task, if you will, that we do once the books are closed from the previous fiscal year. Business office determines what reserve amount we have that we can then put into our accounts, or our kitty, if you will, for this current fiscal year. And then whatever is unused at the end of June 30, 2026 is then returned to the taxpayers. Tim, I don't know if you want to add any more to it or if that's good.
Exactly correct.
Okay.
But you might, maybe you guys all know, but this is what voters allowed to give you the authority. Years ago, they gave you the authority to save up to 2.5% of your total amount raised in property taxes. So that's what that number represents. That's 2.5% of the 24-25 school property tax amount. And they say you can take your unreserved fund balance and reserve up to 2.5%. You can spend that in the next year, or you can just have it for emergencies, and then as Jacqueline said, it'll automatically be returned to as surplus for the following year. If you don't reserve it again in new funds, then that'll go back and reduce your taxes. So it is about 909,000 this year, I think. So it's a little bit more, but it always just grows with the amount of tax grows or shrinks.
Okay, on the agenda it says 938,450. So is
Correct.
it less now? Okay, you
No,
said
no.
909.
909 was
year's.
last year's that went back on June 30
Okay.
to increase your surplus, right, by 909. But then you'll reserve 938. So the net will be about $30,000 more out of your fund balance than you had.
Right.
The net difference between 909 and 939.
Any questions for Tim before we make a motion? Okay. With that said, can I have a motion to recommend to the full board the reserve amount of $938,450?
So moved. Second.
Okay, all right. And because this is going to the full board, Cynthia will not vote on this, correct? Am I thinking this through correctly with the full board?
Nope, she can vote on anything that's going to the.
Recommend, right, it's just the budget transfers. Right, right, right. Okay, so Cynthia, you can vote. Great. All right, with that said, motion to approve. All those in favor? Opposed? All right, that carries 5-0. All right, let's move on to the quarterly grant report, please. And it's pretty condensed, but whatever you can do to make it big. There you go.
So we do a quarterly grant report. It has Keene's grants on there, and it says the start date, end date, how much has been allocated. That's how much is available for you to use. And then approved budget is how much you've written and gotten approved to use. And then expenses through your time period that's on the top, and available funds, and then what's going to be returned. We know we had just poor management of our Title I funds, and we returned over $600,000. Sounds like a business office problem, but no, it's a grant manager problem. That grant manager is no longer in charge of that grant, and they're no longer a grant manager. Everything else is looking pretty good. We are happy to get some of these grants because many, if you were watching the news, were suspended or being withheld. And most of our major ones we've actually received and are allowed to spend. IDEA has been late, but we got a note from the state that said with that grant, if it's certain type of expenditure, we can expend it before we write it, and they'll reimburse us in arrears. That's very unusual. Almost all the grants that we get have to be approved and have a purchase order prior to a dollar being spent, or you do not receive funds in reimbursement. That one's a little different, but if they didn't do that, there would be 100, lots of high schools and schools in the state that would be really short on services because IDEA grant is a major grant, and so we'll get that. And you can see for us, it's, there's over 1.7 million on the board there. So that would be really impactful for us. And we have many employees in that grant. So we're doing well. If you have questions, we usually invite a grant manager in a couple, 2-3 times a year, a couple times. October would be a good month to do that. But once we get into budget, it's tough. But then in the spring, we do it again. But if you had a grant you wanted to know more about, we would invite the grant manager to go through in detail what they're spending it on, what they had spent it on, and tell you a little bit about their grant and activities. I think that's been really successful for this committee. So I would need some direction. We most recently had Perkins, but IDEA is probably your most impactful, most diverse. Some other interesting ones are ComEd, but we did just have her do a detailed budget for you in just a few months ago. And we went over a lot of their activities, but you can choose anything you want. McKinney-Vento is really part of Title I. That's an interesting one as well. So you tell me where you want to go, and I can get a grant manager here.
Any requests or questions from Tim? Go ahead, Chris. Mr. Roberts.
I think the IDEA is really important, and with all this stuff that's going on, we don't know what can be covered by IDEA now that used to be covered or what might go back and forth. We're still not really guaranteed that all the money's always going to come in or it won't be pulled back. And so I think if we don't know about that, then if something like that happens, we'd be kind of reactive. And I think we got to be proactive in this area.
Can I suggest that we do IDEA in October, if they can make that work? And if they can't, we'll push them off till November. Then we need to take a break. In April or May, we'll have Title I come in, which I think we're gonna wanna look at because we lost so much money in that, and you need to know what they're doing with it. We have a brand new grant manager, so the assistant superintendent's been doing it more, but I think that will be interesting for you to know what we're doing with those funds. We also have a lot of issues with those funds in that we have some schools that are identified as, and some that aren't, but we have to be careful that when we use grant money for Title I, we aren't providing the same service a non-Title I gets, we're just putting it in Title I. For example, I'm just going to use something crazy. If you said that this school is going to get 15 minutes of a math specialist per kid, per class every day, and you did that for Title I, if a non-Title I school also got the same service in the general fund, then you would risk losing those funds. Because what the idea of the grant is that you're giving something extra with these for kids who need it. For kids who are Title I eligible, they're not achieving at the same level, so you're supposed to provide something extra, not the same to lower your costs. And so that's an issue where we've lost some funds but didn't want to get rid of the services. If we keep those services, right, then it goes, hey, it's not extra. So we'd have to be careful. So we could either be made to provide that service on the taxpayer's dime for everybody and come up with some new service. So we have to be really cognizant. So I think it'd be good if you guys reviewed those so you understood what was happening.
One more question.
Yes, go ahead, Chris.
We ran into that problem prior to COVID where Simons was not a Title I school, but we were wanting everybody to get the same services. And I think then we had to pay $100,000 out of our own budget just to provide the same services because Simons wasn't a Title I school.
It's really easy to run into that. If you have a program that gets rooted in the school and employees, when you lose the federal funds, it's very difficult for school boards and administration to say, nope, that service is going away. It sounds easy why I'm explaining it, but you've tried to cut staff here before. It's very difficult. And the problem is you put all your funds at risk when you behave like that. And I'm not being accusatory, I'm just saying, it's difficult and it happens, and we have to be careful.
I like your suggestion of us having IDEA either for October Finance Committee or if not November. In terms of the Title I know we've got a new grant manager and we're about to embark on, the new budget season. But I'm just wondering if waiting till April or May, at that point, like the year is almost over. So that if there's any questions, I'm just sort of feeling like if there's a way that we could get even some sort of a little report or an update or have our new grant manager join us a little bit sooner, I think that would be
We can do one in
ideal.
October and one in November if you wish. I don't think it's going to be the type of thing where you're going to be making changes from this. I just think you'll be informed. But in the past, we've done one in the fall and one in the spring. That's why I suggested that. But we could do one in October and one in November.
Yeah, I'm thinking if we can do one October, one November, and yes, totally understand it's informational, but thinking about, in fact, that we were without a grant manager for a while, now we've got one in place with everything going on up in Concord and everything is so fluid, I think it would be helpful for the board and then also helpful for, residents of Keene and taxpayers to see, okay, where are we at now with our Title I and what's ahead? Okay? Okay. Any other questions with the quarterly grant report? With that said, can I have a motion to accept the quarterly grant report dated the 30th as informational?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that one carries 5-0. All right. Next up, some gifts. Well, I should say gift in the singular, excuse me. We had a good number of them when we last met. In our drive, we have received a generous donation from Granite City Electric Supply Company with some equipment, and this is for our Cheshire Career Center. Is it specifically for our engineering program, or just Cheshire Career Center, the programming and?
It's, yes, it's,
Okay.
it's just the computer engineering teacher accepting the gift for his class.
Yeah, okay. And if I did my math right this afternoon, all of the equipment totals $850. And so with that said, can I have a motion to accept this gift of $850 in computer equipment with gratitude?
So moved with gratitude.
Second.
Also with gratitude, Mr. Roberts?
Correct.
There we go, okay. All those in favor? Opposed? All right, and that carries 5-0. All right. Budget transfers. Those we did have several of. All right, our first one is for Franklin Elementary in the amount of $16,380. This is for site counseling and evaluations that will be provided by a contracted service provider. And part of that is because we are still in search of a full-time psychologist. And so this budget transfer dollar amount of $16,380 is coming from the salary for that position. Okay? All right. Can I have a motion to approve?
So
is for
moved.
Okay,
I'll go second.
awesome. Any questions for Tim? Okay. With that said, all those in favor? Okay, opposed? And that will carry 4-0 since it's a budget transfer. All right, so that one's done. Our next one is for the high school in the amount of $22,000. This is for special ed contract services in the amount of $22,000 for BCBA, and this is also coming from a salary line from the classroom assistants. Okay. With that said, can I have a motion to approve the budget transfer for Keene High School in the amount of $22,000?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? That one carries 4-0. Next one is Simons Elementary. And this is also for psych counseling and evaluations.
The same position as the Franklin, they share.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Yep. So again, we're looking for that position. In the meantime, we are transferring out from that salary line to cover the contracted service. Can I have a motion to approve the budget transfer for $25,000 for Simons Elementary?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries 4-0. Next up, Franklin Elementary. This is for other purchase professional services in the amount of $57,084. This is to cover contracted service providers out of speech therapist. And is this also because we don't have the position filled?
We increased our speech therapist numbers.
Okay.
And we weren't able to fill one of those positions.
Got it. Okay. All right. Can I have a motion to approve the amount of $57,800 or $57,084
So
for
moved.
Franklin Elementary?
Second.
Okay. Any questions for Tim? Okay. All those in favor? Carries 4-0. Next up, Keene High School in the amount of $100,000 for special ed. This is an opening again for a position that we need at the high school. And it's coming out of our classroom assistant salary. And in the meantime, it's being filled by, yeah, go
This
ahead,
is a
Tim.
little different. The first one we saw from the high school was using savings in classroom assistant line to hire an unrelated position called
Okay.
a board certified behavior analyst. They're not related.
Okay.
This particular one is unable to hire classroom assistants, so they're filling those roles with LNAs. So they're related. This is the contracted service they're using to fulfill what we would normally have the classroom assistants do with the vacancy. So this is a one-to-one fill. The BCBA, although it said it's filling, they're really not related.
Okay. Are there any questions for Tim? Okay. With that said, can I have a motion to approve the budget transfer for Keene High School for $100,000 for health contracted services for special ed?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Carries 4-0. And I believe that was, yep, that was the last of our budget transfers. We are cooking along here. Project Keep, if we can have an update on that, please. I know as of our last meeting in June, you had a number of families that had worked out either a payment or a payment plan, and there was about 24 families in June that were still
So we've had a number of families call, set up payment plans or pay, more than last time we spoke. We're still short somewhere around, I don't have the exact number on me, but around $40,000 for the 2 years, 45 maybe. But we've made a lot of progress. So, you know, we're collecting it slowly but surely. And we've also trained the new staff there, and we've pretty much shifted collections back to them, which is nice. I mean, I was taking calls several times a week, and we set up a new SharePoint so we can help them and support them, see what they're doing, things like that.
clarification, back up if you will, just for a moment, Tim. You said you've trained the staff in Project Keep, and you're having them handle it now. Are you talking about the families that have an outstanding balance from the past 2 school years? Okay.
I still-
Or
I still
this
set
school
up all
year
payment
forward?
plans.
Okay,
So if they ask for a payment plan, that's still going directly to me.
okay,
But on regular collections and sending out letters, I've showed them how to do that, helped them, been there, trained them. I've had my staff go there, spend lots of time there. So yeah, we're trying to get them doing what they should have been doing all along, and they seem to be getting trained up. I mean, it's their cost center's duties to have this service and collect funds appropriately. And so they're doing that. I pretty much took over fiscal year '24 when this happened, and all payment plans. And then I had someone else in my office, Marcy Frank, did fiscal year '25. I still did all the payment plans. But we've been trying to transition that back to the department that's supposed to be doing it.
Got it.
So we're in a better place than we were.
okay. As you said, it's a cost center, and, you know, cost center managers have to handle those sorts of administrative responsibilities tied to it.
Yes, and we haven't gotten an update since school started. But right before school started, I had been working with Project Keep on their design for this year. I did all the pricing, the model of the number of employees and things like that. We were short some staff, and we're covering those temporarily with the director and our coordinator. We hired additional leaders in that program, one additional leader, which will cut into our expenses quite a bit. But you know, they need to get fully staffed to make this work. And also, we had waiting lists at most locations, or at least half locations, full at another location, and we were about 10 students below where we wanted to be at a fourth location. So things like, should we not run the fourth location and just ship them somewhere else? Because it just becomes very, as any child service organization will tell you, when you have to break even or cover your costs, you have to be mindful of that. So hopefully we stabilize and we can get to a point where we're working on additional quality and value in the program with additional enrichment opportunities and things like that, but we're not quite there yet. But it's operating, and parents can now have a place to watch their students if they have to work later or whatever, and that's a big deal for a lot of our parents. And so we are currently operating at all 4 elementary schools, which we haven't in several years.
Questions for Tim? Go ahead, Ms. Walker. Paige?
Did we put, or could you review the policies and procedures that were put in place in order to make sure that this doesn't happen again, the collection part of it?
Yeah, well, we have a new simplified, I didn't bring a copy, but it's online, but we have a new simplified procedure and manual for the program itself. We simplified we had somewhere around 5 different tuition rates and multiple discounts available. We simplified. We essentially have one tuition rate. If you're free and reduced, you get a percentage off of that. And it was calculated per day, per month, different every month. And if you didn't go to school because of a snow day, change the amount you owed, it was very hard to keep track of. I simplified that into, there's one rate. It's divided by 10 months. You get 170 days guaranteed with that. If we provide more, doesn't cost you more. We usually provide about 175, but your rate guaranteed you 170 days. If we get you 5 extra, fine, but if school gets canceled, you don't get a refund because you only paid for 170. That was one way we simplified. So there's a number of ways to make it more doable and understandable both for families and the folks running it. That's the first thing we did. We also strengthened the rules. We made it so if you're going to pay cash, you're going to pay cash directly to the business office and not out here. That helps a lot. Cash is the easiest to abscond with. We worked on training and resetting up our ACH payments and our credit card payments, which were the problem with most of the payments that were being neglected to be collected, was almost all in that realm. There was other problems, but so we've done retraining on that. We've helped support that. I have someone in my office who can do that as a backup. So we've taken over a lot of assistance. We created that SharePoint. Now that we set up spreadsheets that they have to keep track of every time they take a payment, talk to a parent, and they take a note so we all can see it. So it's not in a vacuum. We can see pretty much live everything that they're doing for bookkeeping, for receipts, not for their whole program, but for receipts. So those are some of the major changes that we made to the program to make it less risky for us as a district, but it still requires managers who make manager wages to manage their program and be responsible, and their bosses, if they're he or she, to hold them accountable if they're not doing their job, because we can't do it all from our location. If I did, I'd have to expand, which sometimes you want to because it's really hard, but that's where we are.
Can I ask a follow-up to that? So it's great, you've got a SharePoint and staff are going to be responsible to make notes, like if Susie's mom calls and says she's got a payment on the way or whatever it may be. Is there any sort of, again, just I want managers to feel empowered and responsible. But again, as we sort of regroup and we've got new staff, is there any sort of like monthly audit that's going to happen just to make sure we've got all the T's crossed, I's dotted? or?
I don't
you know
have
what
a
mean? I'm
monthly
just
audit, but
thinking.
I've been meeting with them
Okay,
every couple weeks for months.
okay,
And there's other issues, and there's training. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to get into all of them, but you know, we set up guidelines. This is how you have to run it.
Okay.
I mean, it's tough.
Right.
One of the other things we did to Paige's question, which I think is the most critical, which I set up the first time I was involved in this program, which they didn't adhere to, but you pay a month ahead of time. So if you get in the arrears, it's not the $25 late charge. It's you can't come. At the end of that month, you're done until you pay your bill. And if there's a waiting list, you get behind that waiting list. That is the key. You can never fall behind if when they don't pay,
right.
you,
Your
you
child
withhold
cannot
services.
attend.
I
Right.
know it sounds harsh, but there's very difficult to collect for a public school district on services if you provide them before they pay. It's very difficult. And it also creates a terrible relationship between you and your clients, the students and families.
Well,
And
and
so
it gets stressful for the
That
family.
it's stressful. It's not stressful when there's no money on the table, but when it builds up. I mean, I have families right now that owe us over $3,000. I have one person who can only afford to pay $5 a month. They're unemployed. They don't. How am I ever going to get that money? Right. So it should have never gotten to that point. And it shouldn't have, based on the procedures and policy we had in place, but they weren't being adhered to. Now we check in with them. I'm also much closer with the new staff because one of the people that is someone who worked for me for many, many, many years as a director level and had retired and stepped down to an administrative assistant level. I have a pretty good relationship with them. They're pretty overqualified for the job. That helps.
Great. Well, thank you, Tim. I know that that was a lot for your office to recoup, regroup on top of all of the other items. And it sounds like you've got, as you said, some tighter controls and good training, and hopefully it will continue on the up and up. All right. Yes, indeed. One quick housekeeping item, thinking about this is our first meeting since the summer, but at our full board meeting in June, we did approve Jim Carley as our new treasurer now for Keene School District. So we're pleased to have Jim on board as our treasurer, so just wanted to make note of that. Okay, did we have any other or anything? We always have our special ed as a standing item. Didn't see anything in the drive. I don't know if there's anything you needed to report. Okay. All right. With that said, I take it you're bringing in Jennifer Dorr from our auditing.
I'm just trying to do that while you're talking.
And while you're doing that, I'll do a little intro. So, Keene Board of Education, well, Keene School District, excuse me. We always have an annual audit. Just to be clear, this is an audit for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. So it's a bit of a mind bender. We've started a new school year, but it's not, this audit is not for the school year we just finished. So keep that in mind. And again, this is one of our standard procedures. I think it's worth noting, the board chair, Mr. Downing, and I were talking about this afternoon, and in light of things that are going on in the state, with things in flux, with our school district nearby, Claremont, we just want to reassure Keene School District that we are on solid footing. There's, close controls on things, and, despite all of that happening, we still like to be accountable, and hence why we do our annual audit. So there you go. With that said, we have got Jennifer Dorr, our CPA from, is it Vashon? Vashon and Cloquet. And Tim, I don't know if you want to do an intro.
Can you hear us? Jen? We can't hear you, so I'm gonna get the TV remote and try to get you fixed up tech-wise. Just hold on just a second.
Ms. Dorr is joining us via Zoom for those who are watching the live stream.
Where that's supposed to be coming out. Oh, it's up, so that's not good. Are you on mute, or you're, Jennifer, are you on mute, or? You're not muted and we can't hear you. It's not good.
Do you want to try disconnecting and connecting again? Maybe the audio choice when you connect it in?
Give us 1 second, okay? Please hold.
Stand by.
I don't know how to fix this, I don't think. It must be, Kenny, what speakers it's trying to use.
I was going to say, if you go to the,
That was me. That was me.
Oh,
It's coming back. It's coming back.
we're trying. Do you think it's,
Looks like there's supposed to be something coming out.
yeah, but that's our,
right, but then see which one it is.
Oh, yeah. You have her saying it that we hear her.
hey. Nothing still?
Can you hear me?
All right.
There you are.
So this is Jennifer Dorr. Vashon and Kluge has been our auditor for many years, and she's an independent auditor. You should feel free to ask her anything. You can even kick us out and ask her. She's really working independently, not for me, her job is really to look at everything and say, what could your district be doing better, or what didn't they do well, including me and my department. We have some findings this year, which are important. We always have a little something, but this year it's been a little more, most of which we just talked about, but she'll get into that. And she'll also just show you, we do have a clean opinion, but she'll show you about that in the audit. The audit is, I don't know, 4 times thicker than it used to be when I started. And there's all kinds of stuff in there that's very hard to understand. But Jen Dorr can make it sound easy. She's going to do a small presentation, and then feel free to grill her, because this is your time.
I mean, we have limits. You have limits. Hi, everybody. I'm going to start by saying if you hear any animals, I apologize. I've warned everybody, but the animals don't listen. So yeah, as Tim was saying, do have the audit report, which we just finally issued about noontime today. So there is a clean opinion, which means that everything is fairly stated and reasonable. There were some issues that we ran into with a few different things. We had internal control over financial reporting issues, and then we had a couple of compliance issues related to the single audit. I won't go into great detail in the financial statements, and if there's anything specific you want to ask about, please let me know. I'm happy to answer any of the specifics, any of the information in the notes. There's a lot of information in there. So I'm going to kind of skip ahead to page 42. This is our report on internal control over financial reporting. So at the bottom of page 42, it talks about the deficiency in internal control. And that is what sort of run into our first couple of findings. You'll see it says 01 and 02. If you go, I'm just going to kind of do this so you can reference the pages together. Page 48 talks about these different findings. So these don't relate specifically to the single audit, but because you have a single audit, your internal control letter becomes part of that, and that is where we have to report these things. So we have an internal control over payables. So what happened is we had a lot of payables that were not recorded at year end that should have been, and some that should have been recorded or shouldn't have been recorded but were. So it was kind of flip flop back and forth. And it did result in kind of an adjustment to one of the grants, the ESSER grant. And that's sort of where this all stems from. It was material, which is why we're calling the material a material weakness. It was $100,000. That was really just a timing type of a thing. It's not that there was anything reported that should not have been. It was just crossing year ends. So on this page 48, this is our scheduled question costs. So we have to describe all the findings. Then we have the reviews of responsible officials. After that, there's a corrective action plan that Tim had to create that explains what's going to happen and how things are going to be remedied. Number 2 is project keep billing. I would assume that everybody's probably pretty caught up on what was going on there. Basically, revenues, receivables weren't being recorded, tracked, collected. And again, that was a material amount, which is why we're calling it a material weakness. The controls were not in place or properly working. They were in place, but they weren't properly working and being followed to make sure that that process was being followed start to finish. And on page 43, it talks about significant deficiency. So that's not as serious as a material weakness. Material weakness means that the value of what we found was a large dollar amount and affected the financial statements. These are more, hey, it's something bad, but maybe not as bad, but definitely needed to be brought to attention. So that was the number 3, which was the cash reconciliation process. Again, obviously there was ramifications of not having the cash reconciliations done on a timely basis. ACH withdrawals were being made externally from outside sources that should not have been. And if that cash reconciliation process was being done timely, then it would have been faster, and then hopefully, these things would have been stopped. So that's what that one refers to.
Jennifer,
Any questions on those 2 before I kind of skip to the compliance letter?
and this last one is all on me. That did happen. We had been in transition, new staff, we provided training, things are going well. And so that's been rectified, but that was tough. We just had trouble balancing. But I think we're on a good footing now.
And I kind of say on that one, and I said this back when it happened, Tim, that it wasn't any one person really. It felt like kind of the ball was dropped every side, from the business office to the bank even, because the bank should have never allowed them to go through in the first place. So I really feel like it was kind of a big, conglomerate of many things that just, bad timing. So on page 44, this is the compliance letter. So when we do the single audit, there's a whole bunch of requirements that we have to test depending on what the major programs are. This year we did child nutrition program, and then we did the IDA grant. So when we were testing those, we have to go through the various requirements. So child nutrition, we have to test eligibility to make sure that the people that are applying for a free and reduced lunch, that they meet the proper income guidelines and those things. We had a couple of instances where the wrong category was chosen when the application was put into the system. So it was really it was correct on the application. It just didn't get into the database correctly. So then the wrong option for free or reduced lunch was selected. Very immaterial, did it out for the whole year, and what the reimbursement was based on, less than $100. It's very immaterial, but it's the internal control over the compliance requirements that was sort of the failure. So that's why that one is in there. And that's number, make sure I'm in the right spot, 4. So again, it sort of talks about what was the requirement, what happened, what was the effect of it, what caused it, and then our recommendation. And we've tested this, program before, and we talked to the food service director. It was just a missed error. Human error happens. And then the last one was control over payroll, which is related to time and effort. So anybody that works on a grant, they're required to complete these semi-annual certifications that say, yes, I worked 50% of my time on the IDA grant or 50% to the general fund or however it may be. And they have to certify that time under the single audit. And we had a handful of people that those just weren't completed. I think, again, it was a transition of personnel and new people taking over different spots in the business office. We don't generally have not had this. So again, journal control issue over the timekeeping requirement, nothing material. There isn't anything that was improperly charged to the grant. It just didn't have the record keeping behind it to verify that.
So this would be a grant manager responsibility, not the training and to make sure they do it, but that's their job to make sure if they have a grant, they're getting all the proper paperwork and turned in. And yeah, it wasn't good. It's not unusual for time and effort in bookkeeping on federal grant employees to be lacking. It's something we've battled for 20 years, but it's really difficult because then when you get audited, you don't have the documentation you need. You risk not having to return money. It's not good.
Yeah, and it is a hard one. Sometimes people will leave, and then that person's gone, and then certification wasn't done. And we, if that's the case, we tend to not find that that's an issue. But it's just hard to chase everybody down and try to get those things done. Again, we don't think that anybody's time was improperly charged to a grant. It was just that the backup certifying it wasn't there. So those are the 5 findings in there, and then the last pages 52 through 53, 52 and 53 are the corrective action plan that Tim submitted to us. So what happens next year? Well, in 2 weeks when we come out to do the audit for 25, we have to look at these issues from this past year and see if those are still an issue. So even if it's not the major program that we test, we still have to follow up on these findings to make sure that what was said that was going to be done was actually done and corrected and things are working.
Any questions so far for Ms. Dorr? No. Okay.
It's a lot. It's a lot of information all at once. So.
Where do you want to go next, Jen?
I would just touch on the management letter real quick. That's the other file. That one's the governance letter I think you have there, which is fine. We can talk about that one first too. This is just a real boilerplate kind of letter that talks about what our responsibilities were, your responsibilities, any difficulties we encountered, corrected, uncorrected misstatements, which everything has been corrected. And then the only thing that's probably new with this document this year is that at the end of it is a list of journal entries. Now our partner decided to change the way we're showing these, and we show all of the entries that we make. Now, a lot of these entries are converting your financial statements from what we call the fund financial statements, which is what you would present to us, to government-wide. And that's where we put all your debt on the books, we put assets, the OPEB liability, the NPL liability, all those fun things. So that's anything that says 3099 is the entry, is the account number. That's what those entries are. We would not expect the business office to make those entries. The partner just felt like it was important to see what goes into what we do to get to your financial statements. We've had a few people go, why are these 4 pages all of a sudden? We've had 3 entries in the past, so I'd just like to explain why there's that many. And then the last letter is the management letter. This is just things that maybe we saw that we feel like recommendation. Not gonna lie, student activity funds, it's always, everywhere I go, this tends to be a standard management recommendation. It's hard. Student activity funds are hard to manage, have everybody that's in charge of them doing what they're supposed to be, making sure there's receipts with everything that's submitted, invoices, backup, getting them deposited timely. I mean, it's a typical finding. So we just kind of mentioned what we found in the given year, and make a recommendation for it.
Any questions for Jennifer?
All of it in a quick, fast nutshell, but I'm happy to answer any questions about anything that's in here.
Any questions for Jennifer? I have one question, Jennifer, because I do know that, as you said, student activity funds, has been in the audit in the past. And as I said at the very start, this is at the end of 23, 24. And Tim, I know you've been doing a lot of training since then. So I think it's sort of for both of you, even though you cited it, Jennifer, did you see any areas where we've tightened up or improved in some way? Again, you cited a few things, and then I guess, Tim, again, I know you've been doing more training. We've had, I believe, a little bit more stability with staff staying rather than turnover. I'm not
I would say
asking,
definitely.
yeah,
We have a lot of schools.
yeah,
And so there's been, over the years, there's been a lot of areas that have kind of, needed some improvement. And I do feel like it's lessened. Deposits tend to be the hardest part, having backup of what those deposits were made up of. Like in this instance, we've just saying that check request forms weren't being used for disbursements of one school, missing invoice on one disbursement, and then there was 4 disbursements lacking documentation. Now, we don't look at everything 100%. We just pick a sample, so that's what we found out of our sample. Everything is always balanced. We have, bank reconciliations are provided and that stuff. It's just sometimes the supporting documentation is lacking. But I know Tim is forever trying to get the training and drilling it
Yeah.
into their heads what needs to be done. So.
And I ask this not because I'm looking for a, who did it wrong or that there was something just absolutely outrageous, but again, for transparency and for the taxpayers, I'm just looking for a little framework that, it sounds like, as you said, this was a sample. You're not finding, huge discrepancies or large dollar amounts. And then, Tim, I wanted, you to be able to,
It's so hard because if we stay structured how we are, like most schools are, there is no way any year we're going to be clean on student activity funds. Impossible. Because you have so many hands in it. I just need one principal, an assistant, and their assistant to write a check in an emergency and not have any documentation or forget to balance. I have one place that has a lot of these funds. I send one of my staff to help them balance every month, all year long. I can train them and do that, but some people can't balance a checkbook. But guess what? When you're a principal, that might be not your number one concern with your administrative assistant. So they might be doing it, but they really can't do it. And there's so many. We're talking across the high school, just dozens and dozens.
right, this is fundraisers, this is
Yes, it's
regular
fundraisers.
clubs.
I put it in we have enterprise accounts where we have teachers, might be brand new. They control a fundraising sale or a Cheshire Career Center. They might sell $30,000 worth of tulips. They might not be very good at financial record keeping. We can help, we can provide that, but if we don't do it in-house, there's no way to ensure. To do it in-house, we'd have to have a lot more staff, a teller window. It'd be a lot hard. This is a battle throughout all schools.
This
I
is
don't
not
want to
unique
make
to CUNY.
excuses.
Right.
What I'm saying is I've been doing this for 24, 25 years. And if you look at student activities funds, in your smallest schools to your biggest, you can find issues. And what we need to do is stay vigilant, have trainings. I battle with people doing these funds weekly. This is not an easy task. My staff is in tension-filled disagreements about this stuff because they don't want it to be hard. But we try to stay with our internal controls, and we need them to write this on there. So you guys are like, you got to do better because we need to do better. But I don't have any illusions that any auditor is going to be able to come one and say your student activities are squeaky clean. If they have a district that does that, I want to know who it is, and I want to go there for training because I don't know how you would do it.
Right.
Not in a district this size.
Yes, Paige, and then Randy.
Tim, I'm wondering how you're feeling about the corrective action plans, how it's you feel like it's being followed? You feeling like it's gonna?
Yeah,
happen for
I mean,
fiscal year
most of this
25?
stuff, by the time you got the audit, we've known about it for months and have already done our corrective action plans. We can never have too much training for student activity fund and that stuff. And it's just not a priority for most departments. So that, I don't feel great about that. Like, we can get better, but then we'll have a new person here. It's very difficult. But for all the other ones, I feel good about. For federal grants and stuff, I'm always nervous about cost center managers and grant managers, because we're just the bookkeepers. But the grant managers are supposed to adhere to all these rules put on by the feds. And we put roadblocks in that they can't move forward if they're not adhering to the purchasing, not adhering to this or that. But that's very difficult for us. They're not people we supervise. We can block funds, but when someone's being hired, we can't withhold payroll because they didn't fill out the forms. You got to pay the payroll. That makes it tough, but it's up to their boss to hold them accountable if they don't do that. So all the plans I feel good about, but I don't feel like activity funds will ever be perfect. I think we should be trying, but unless you bring them in-house and like control money just like regular district money, it's tough.
Yes, Randy.
Just briefly, Tim, I just want to say I'm impressed. Good job. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I don't feel that way, but we are trying hard. And our staff from the business office came in, our accountant, Jennifer, and our finance manager, Marcy Frank. And that's Jennifer Howe.
Let me send my good job congratulations out to you also. Thank you.
The real work happens with those folks.
I'll transfer the congratulations and get it, Tim.
And am I keeping my timeline straight that for a good portion of the 23-24 fiscal year, your business office was not fully staffed? Or maybe by the tail end, so, or not at all. but
Nor part of
worth
this year,
noting.
but yeah,
Yeah,
been tough.
yeah. So again, I concur with Mr. Filio, you know, you all had to carry on, things still had to keep happening even with being short-staffed. So that's commendable. Other,
I just want to chime in and say that your business office works very hard. Very hard there's a lot going on. You know, we have a lot of schools and a lot of pieces and moving things, and there's not a ton of people, so.
right.
They work hard, they want to understand, they want to make things better. Marcy emails me, and I'm happy to answer questions anytime, she knows that, so. Anything I can do to help at any time, so, makes our life easier at the end.
And again, remember, this is our audit just for Keene School District, but we're part of the larger SAU 29. So the business office, you know, is handling 7 district budgets, so it is a lot. So thank you. All right. Okay, excellent.
Sounds like you're
All
done.
right.
So we do this every year. If you ever wanted to have a non-public with Jennifer and like go, hey, what's the dirt? You're well within your right to do that, or you can set up a call anytime. But
Yeah, we encourage people to reach out at any point. You know, if there's ever any concern, you can email me directly. We're on our website, you can reach me that way, so.
Right. Just one other thing I want to point out that's noted in, it was either in the management document or the governance letter, where you have to cite if the business office staff were accommodating and cooperative, and there was no issues cited there. So I think that that's another important point to cite. Again, especially with just everything going on in the state right now, you all were very transparent and provided what the auditors needed. So thank you, Tim. Yeah, and Marcy and everybody. Okay. With that said, can I have a motion to accept the audit report for 23-24 as informational and recommend the report to the full board?
So moved. Second.
Okay. All right. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. That carries, let's see, we can still count. Yeah.
Thank
that
you,
carries
Jennifer.
5-0. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
See you in a couple of weeks.
Jennifer. All right. Let's see, was there anything else? Any other items? We don't have any non-public. I'm just realizing I did not close public input. But again, we had no members of the public show up to attend. With that said,
Got one
yeah,
other.
you have one other. Okay, go
Well,
for it.
some of you, many of you were here for the Building and Grounds, the Facilities Committee meeting. You probably noticed that we had a number of emergency type of projects unbudgeted this year. Doesn't always happen. Just keep an eye on it. It'll show up in our financial report. We did have some savings that Ken worked really hard on acquiring by going out to bid. We did more paving than we planned on in the budget, but our pricing for paving was outstanding compared to the last few years because there was less work out there. We got more hungry bids. So we saved some money there, so that's going to help. But we had additional projects done at the roofing project in Franklin. The Simons project with those cracked lids were over the structures were really expensive, and that was unexpected. We had some paving overhauls. We did rent to our bus company, which pays really pretty good money. So we get some of that back, and we had some savings. So I think we'll be okay. But we also talked about this new fire alarm system, which Paige got to see when she went to the walkthrough. It's really a very neat system that allows us, we think, to be much safer if an unspeakable thing happens. But it allows us to test for it. But it also is much safer on an everyday standpoint because it has an alarm that lets us not desensitize people to the emergency alarm, but maybe a lockdown because a kid's freaking out in the hallway, or there's a strange odor, or there's bees in the hallway and you don't come out of your classroom. We have an alarm for that. It's a 3-part alarm. We really need to finish that alarm. We've been getting a lot of pushback from the fire department having part of it done and not the whole thing, the inequities in it. We would like to, if I identify some monies as the year goes on, identify that and build it throughout this year. So next year when we come back to school, we're opening with this fully functional, enhanced alert system. Fire, and I just call it amber and blue. We're excited about that. We think we've been to a big conference about these sort of things, and we're excited. But we don't think we can phase it in. We think we have to finish it. It's quite expensive, but I'll let you know if I identify money. I want you, as the Finance Committee, to be aware of these financial swings, so I don't like surprises. I like to keep you on the aware. If we don't identify money, then we won't finish it, but.
Okay. Yeah. In other words, as you said, Keene Fire Department's anxious for us to button this up, so all the more reason where you've got to find funds for this fiscal year rather than trying to find money for next budget year.
Well, they're fine if we don't put it into action. They're not making us put it into action.
Okay.
We could stay with just a fire alarm for the next 5 years and phase it in until we're done. It's a lot of money to put in. We have all the lamps. We don't want to wait 2 or 3 years to actually have a working system for those other alarms. We need to get this done and move on to the high school, as that's where it's most needed. And if we take 3 years to put this system in and get it up and running, that puts the high school could take a long, it's a big project. The high school could easily be $1 million project, right? And I don't want to put that off 10 years. It's critical that we get more serious about our school safety, particularly at the high school. So I want to get this operational so we can know how to use it, test it, and this will permeate throughout the district. It's really, in fact, maybe this next month on Ken's report, we could put some pictures of what it looks like so you can get an idea what we're talking about.
You read my mind. I was going to say, when we're talking about this big a ticket item, I think it would be very helpful to have a slide deck you know, something to give us a little bit more detail about, okay, what is this going to do for us?
So-
You know, what items, you mentioned pictures, just a little
sli-
bit more, just to,
A slide deck might be too
So-
aggressive for what we can put together from next month, but we can, if we'll put this on the agenda for facilities, and we'll give you an idea. I mean, we do have a risk assessment, we have some pictures, and we can describe what it is and put it on paper so you guys can understand what we're doing. Okay?
okay. All right, very good, okay. If there's no other, our facilities meeting, oh, one more thing, our schedule for committee this year is now officially in the drive. We had made some edits at the June meeting with start times, so that is in our 25-26 drive at the very bottom. All right? With that said, meeting adjourned at 7:06 PM.